Hello, my name is Stephen Diorio. I'm the Executive Director of the Revenue Enablement Institute. Our organization recently undertook an industry-wide initiative to help boards, CEOs, and growth leaders understand how they can evolve their commercial models to accelerate growth and adapt to the new buying reality. As part of that, we identified 100 technologies that are leading and enabling the transformation of sales, marketing, and service. One of those is RFPIO, a company that is reimagining the way organizations source, create, deliver, and personalize content in ways that create value, not just for proposals and RFPs, but for sales readiness, sales training, and answering everyday selling questions from clients. I'm joined today by Ganesh Shankar, the CEO of RFPIO. Welcome, Ganesh.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me on this show. Thank you.
Well, Ganesh, just to get us started, we have a framework that looks holistically at sales and marketing technology and how we can connect assets to value. One of the biggest selling assets in a company is content, and that asset is only growing. Our research shows that that asset is severely underutilized in selling, in training, in every channel. And I think what you're doing is amazing in terms of taking those growth assets and delivering them in ways that create value. Can you tell us a little bit about RFPIO and how you're creating value for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. So I love your framework. You know, the way you guys have put together those framework connecting the sales, marketing, to other parts of organization is exactly what we are evangelizing, right? You know, RFPIO is a cloud application helping our companies, our clients to respond to, like you said, day-to-day questions, prospect questions, or sometimes even internal questions that need to be answered. Typically, it could be an RFPs or RFIs, security questionnaires, internal knowledge sharing. Those are different areas RFPIO helps our customers to, eventually utilize the content that we curate in the platform.
And so what is a common use case today, and where might that use case go tomorrow?
Yeah. As our name sounds, RFPIO, the word RFP is the most common use case that we solve, which is helping our customers to respond to requests for proposals in a more effective way. Because when the sales reps, he or she, they get that RFP from the customer as a questionnaire. When they receive the questionnaire, it is no longer a document. It becomes a massive project internally because you have to, bring the three-legged point, which is scope, people, and cost. These are nothing but a project. When that happens, you have to rely upon multiple people to solve or respond to an RFP. That's where we come into picture. RFPIO can help them facilitate first content, facilitate collaboration, and facilitate integration too. The reason why we say facilitation is our application helps in the same use case that I just talked, the sales rep to easily collaborate with the quote unquote subject matter experts. So for example, the sales rep, the customer is asking about a product information or a product overview, and the sales rep may not exactly want to put their foot in a thumbprint on it because the product gets updated very frequently, right? These days when you talk about agile methodology, the product gets updated very frequently. So they want the product managers to update the content to help them respond to this RFP. So that's where we come into picture. So what happens is they can facilitate, they can send those questions that are relevant for that subject matter expert through our platform. The subject matter experts get the RFPs or the section of the RFP that they have to complete it, and they can answer it. The beauty of the application is the more you respond, it becomes intelligent. It becomes, much more value. It becomes, because when you get an RFP next time in a short span of time, sometimes you don't have to go to the subject matter expert because system will automatically recommend based on the question that you are about to respond for the sales rep. Hey, could be a potential answer for this because this is what came from the product manager last week. Does it make sense, John? Sorry,
No,
Stephen?
I think it's fantastic. And I think the way you've changed the unit of analysis of, rather than RFPIO just being a document, it is actually the crucible where the most current questions, the most relevant questions, and the most up-to-date answers from the smartest people in your company, your product managers, are happening. And from that should be flowing training, information to answer sales, frequently asked questions. And so what I found compelling about what you're doing is you are sitting on a transaction that is actually the hotbed of where the most valuable content in the organization is being created, and it's the most relevant content because it's answering buying questions by the client.
Absolutely.
So let me just create a big picture of what we saw and why I think RFPIO is so important. So our analysis looked at what forces are changing the model. And a lot of these relate to what Ganesh is talking about, connecting the dots across the ecosystem. Everybody has a digital asset management system, but getting that information into the hands of sales reps or proposal writers and moving that around is the trick. And so what Ganesh is doing is moving that information and connecting those dots. People are pivoting to virtual selling channels. And as I'll show you, content is king in those channels. Fast, complete, immediate content that is relevant and customized and contextual is more important, and budgets are shifting that way. Old school selling is being eclipsed by new school buying. These buyers are demanding the right content regardless of who they're talking to. And I think one of the things Ganesh talks about is I could be a sales rep, but I could be asked to answering product roadmap questions because I have access to this proposal information. And probably most important is that CFOs and CEOs are starting to demand, what am I getting for this technology? What am I getting for this data? And I think the big question is, what am I getting for this content? I've done dozens of sales enablement studies, and content overwhelmingly is underutilized. It's not even in one place, much less current and relevant the way you describe it. And analytics can help change this. So to flip back to you, one of the biggest findings of our study when we talk to sales and marketing executives is, what is holding you back? How are you going to be successful in this new world of remote selling? The number one answer is relevant, personalized content. And the color on that is, I don't care who I get it from, and I don't want to set up an appointment or have a specialist on the call. I don't care who I'm talking to, whether it's sales, marketing, service, or an industry specialist. I want that information when I'm on the call. And I think that's what you're sitting right in the middle of. And as a byproduct, we're seeing this massive pivot in budgets. Obviously, face-to-face selling, travel, overhead are going down, and digital content, videos, contextual content, webinars, content that livens up Zoom calls is the number one area where budgets are shifting. So I think it's pretty clear that technologies are going to have to come in and take the content and intelligence on the left and move it into revenue teams, proposals, service channels. Can you talk a little bit more about what your clients are struggling with and how they're evolving to moving the content on the left into the value buckets here on the right?
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. So, like I talked about, the one typical use case we talk about is RFPs, right? The way we are seeing the market is shifting is, instead of having many different systems, I was recently reading an article that really resonated with me, how a technology needs to be a hub instead of a terminal, right? We are seeing us becoming a hub where we host the content that those terminal applications can be, repurposed that through the integration. When we see this, our customers have been faced with bigger challenges prior, where the contents were siloed. Everybody created their own piece of content, and then at each step of this, from left to right, if you look at it, right, the sales support teams created their own content, the revenue teams created their own content, the services teams created their own content. But what the challenge is, the customer on their, today, in their, life cycle journey, when a customer from a lead to prospect to becoming a customer and through the lifetime, the customer expect the same tone. They don't like to be, messaged differently at different point of time. So what happens is, because of the siloed content, it is becoming challenge for our organization, especially our customers who are feeling that challenge. What we are trying to solve now is we are fundamentally saying RFPs are the very early stage of an engagement, right? When you get an engagement, that's when you are, getting an RFP. There's an opportunity. There's an opportunity. You have to go through this, sequence of, evaluation process as a vendor for the customer. When you get an RFP, that's the first, real sense of an opportunity. In an enterprise sales, I'm talking about. So that's when what we are trying to do is, you can not just product managers. I'm talking about every subject matter expert. It could be legal. Sometimes RFP does need, a set of legal eyes to come into the security, finance. You talk about operations. All of them contribute to help the sales reps to win those deals in an RFP. When I say win those deals, it doesn't mean that you're closing the deal. Rather, you're progressing to the next stage. If you're progressing, that's where it comes into the revenue teams, things. And it's not just RFP. Yes, RFP, you've been selected. Now on to the next stage. Maybe it's a demo, or maybe a more personalized conversation. Even there, when you're doing a presentation, you are expected to speak the same language. You don't want to create a, just for winning an RFP, you don't want to say something, and when you get into a personal conversation in the past, it was sometimes it's face to face. You go to a customer place and do a deeper dive. You don't want to create multiple different messages now, because the customers chose you because the way you responded to an RFP. The way RFPIO sees is, how can we democratize that content across the board, not just in the sales process, right? No, not just in the pre-sales process, post-sales process, sales process, even services. How can we, a customer who needs a support, who raises a ticket, as could be as simple as the customers raising a ticket, in any ticketing system that one of our customers have. What happens is, if the ticketing agent could not find the right content in those ticketing systems as a response to that query or an issue, what we are trying to do is we are allowing them a mechanism to query our content library. The support agent can use that content to respond to a ticket. It's a post-sales process, because it is in the SaaS world, in a cloud world, customer retention is the most important measurement to retain revenue. The customer retention is the number one criteria. So you have to maintain the same level of consistency across the board and give the customer what they wanted, not just see customer as just a ticket number. It is being seen as more personal. If you've got to be more personal, you've got to give them the more personalized content. If the personalized content is given, it cannot be prepared just on the fly. It needs to come from the right source at the right time and at the right minute, right? So that the support agent, the business development executives who are in the front lines can be rest assured they're using the latest and greatest content that has been approved by the subject matter experts.
Ganesh, you've simplified this beautifully, but this is non-trivial. Most people who think about content try to tackle the filing problem, getting it all in one place, getting it organized, and sourcing it. And I think what's amazing about what you're talking about is you're looking at it organically. You are sitting at the organic creation of the most critical content of the company, but you're also doing a much more difficult task, content assembly and delivery in context. Can you talk a little bit technically about the difficulties of assembling that different content, organizing it, meta tagging it, so that it can be on call in the context? Because an agency can't do that, and a content administrator can't do that. So can you tell me a little bit about the complexities of the technology? It's a completely different way of approaching it.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. So if you look at like you said, there are people who can do that. What I see, their responsibility becomes much more easier these days when you have a system like this. The content managers or the content administrators can manage the life cycle of the content, but the content as such need to be given by the subject matter experts. If you can, the content managers or the content specialists, they can what I call is, they can make sure the grammar is correct, the content is in the right messaging, but you need the fundamental raw content from somewhere, right? You cannot be expert of everything. You can be expert of one, but if you want to get that information, you have to get it from the experts. That's where the subject matter expertise comes into play. But beyond that, as a technology, like you started off, right? Earlier, the problem is categorization itself is a problem. How do you categorize? Can you go by the subject matter experts? Can you go by, is this the product information? Is it the security information? Is it the finance information? Is it about a company information? That's where the technology is maturing these days. We have built-in, machine learning technologies that first allows you to automatically categorize based on how historically you've categorized certain content, right? Not just keywords I'm talking about. It is the way the content is being processed. It could be system. Today, RFPIO can recommend, if you create a piece of content, RFPIO can recommend you a nice little tag for those content. You can say, okay, this is about security. This is about legal. Or this is about, go further one level down. This is legal, but this is about jurisdiction. Even go next level. It is jurisdiction, but it is about IP, jurisdiction, not the general contractual jurisdiction. So you have those things. System can recognize the way the content is being created. System can, based on that, can recommend what could be an appropriate tag. And that means when you create a new content, system will recommend those content based on your pattern of how you categorize it. So you, as a user, you don't need to think twice, or you don't need to think, you break your head on what kind of categories. Yes, even if you're ready to do that, the problem with that is, everybody sees content in a different way. They may create their own set of categorization, which may lead to further duplicates, right? There is a lot of, I may see it as a company level information. Somebody may see the exact same information as a financial information. Then there are two categories already exist, and the content gets duplicated. So whereas these things can be avoided just by the system. System automatically shows you, all you have to do is, yes, this is the correct content. If it's already there, you just review it and just say, give you a thumbs up, and it automatically categorizes the content. That is just categorizing. You talk about the assembly then. Assembling the content, right? It is true because I've lived that life before. As simple as if I'm trying to prepare, either a proactive proposal or unsolicited proposal or even an RFP. When the sales rep, they get an RFP, in a Word, let's assume in a Word document, right? In a Word document, a questionnaire has been sent to my sales rep. He or she, what they have to do is, if they don't have a system like this, they have to first break it down into multiple documents. They will send it to me because I'm as a product manager. Hey, Ganesh, and they will send it to my co-founders, Shankar and Sundar. They handle security and implementation questions. What happens? Imagine if I follow Times New Roman. If my co-founders followed Arial, somebody else followed Veronica. So different font style, different bullets. As simple as assembling the document content, right? If all of them send it back to the sales rep, hey, we have finished your questions, here's the answer. Now the sales rep opens 5 documents, and for all of them are in different fonts, different styles, different bullets. The person or the sales rep, who's the most expensive resource of a company, now going, oh my gosh, I have to now consolidate and make it cohesive from top to bottom, because I cannot send a Frankenstein document to my customer. It doesn't look good when I send it to the prospect in this different way. So now they have to sit and make sure they are following the same pattern, you don't have to do anything of that if you have an RFPIO solution. Because no matter what font, no matter what kind of content, with a click of a button, you can standardize or normalize it from the top to bottom and say, okay, these are the section headers I wanted. This is how this is the font I wanted. This is how the bullet should be. You can define it and then let the system to do the job for you, because these are some very minuscule tasks. But if you all put together in a 50-page document, it is a massive task for one of the most expensive resources. I would rather have the sales rep to be in front of a customer, spending their time understanding and trying to sell, not sitting in front of a document trying to make sure this, the document looks beautiful so that they can submit it. If that can be automated, that's what we do. And that's where the assembly comes into picture. Assembling not just the RFP, I'm talking about proactive proposal. I'm just unsolicited document. I want to send it to my prospect, but I have 15 products, but I'm sending two products to this prospect. Now I have to gather that information, put it into this document. I might have a template, but I still have to get that because I have so many content, but I don't want to send everything to the customer. I'm trying to send only the relevant information that speaks that language to the customer. For that, you need the assembly, and the assembly line should be very effective.
Well, it's funny. I know we've got only a few more minutes, but when we first looked at this space, it's pretty easy to look at a magic quadrant and lump you in with CPQ or other types of solutions. But when you look at it through this lens of connecting the dots, all of a sudden, the unique value you create in terms of assembly and intelligence and this democratization of content becomes real. This is a simplified version of our framework. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, once you've licked the assembly problem, training people, sales readiness, guided selling, answers in the moment, organizing content, sales content systems, and making this all hang together starts to make sense. So on one level, your name implies that you're solving a good problem, the RFP problem, but what you're really doing is the high order content analysis that allows you to impact training, readiness, sales, and all aspects of the content system. Can you talk a little bit about these use cases that you see, some intended, some unintended, that your clients are using you for that you hadn't even seen before because you've solved these problems?
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen, if you look at the grid in front of us, it's easy for somebody to think, okay, we are falling under the proposal RFP, pricing guidance box. But truly, what we are doing is, and like you started off the conversation, with the content that we are curating, we are pretty much seeing the customer use the application for all the rest of 5 boxes right here, including in the way of digital adoption, because they want to have a consistent messaging across the board. Like you said, I was talking to one of our customers very recently. They talked about how they are using RFPIO as an onboarding platform. When they hire a sales rep, they have a formal, training process, but that happens in a cohort. They wait for 4 or 5 people to join and they go through this cohort. But sometimes they don't want to wait until the cohort has been formed. They hire the rep, but now they want to, they don't want to go through the sales cycle or sales training cycle. Rather, what they're doing is they're telling the newly joined rep to go and read and understand the content from our library, because it's already been categorized. They're talking about, they have created a sequence of onboarding FAQs. They've created onboarding product FAQs. So as a new rep, when you join an organization, all you have to do is you can go to our library and pick up that category of content and start reading and start familiarizing with you. And then, that becomes an onboarding process. Another I was talking about another day where one of our SDRs teams, they use RFPIO extensively. When our SDRs, the sales development representatives, try to call a prospect and they try to set up an appointment to take a look at a demo, the prospect is saying, okay, I'm not ready for a demo yet, but I have certain basic question. Or where are you guys hosted? What is your encryption technology? Are you guys, what does your licensing model look like? Those questions, they no longer have to say, okay, you please wait, I will check with my sales manager, or I will check with my product manager. They don't have to do that because that script is already given in our platform. All they have to do is search for that content, and they have the first line of answers right in front of them, and they can use that. Like I already talked about a support use case, how support teams, how services teams are using our application. As simple as another use case, very interesting use case. We even have a product for that. Is if you're an enterprise AE, let's assume Stephen is a sales rep for on a company. You're trying to sell Ganesh something. I'm sending Stephen an email with 3 bullets. I'm asking Stephen, can you give me a product overview? Can you please tell me what does the implementation plan look like? Can you give me 3 references? That is just an email, and I'm sending it to Stephen. And Stephen, it is not an RFP. There is no attachment. It is just 3 bullets in an email that comes to you in either Gmail or Outlook, no matter what email client you use it. If you have RFPIO, all you have to use your mouse, highlight the bullet number 1 on your email, right click, look up RFPIO. You can look the content right at that fingertip. You don't need to, think about what could be the product overview because you're replying in email. When you do that, you're not thinking of going into a system searching for the content. Whereas we are making that even more easier. Right click the mouse, look up RFPIO. You will get the answer right there, no matter which email client you have. So it is right there. All you do is just copy and paste it into your email and send it as a reply. So you don't have to, as a sales rep, you don't need to think twice because even before you use the content, we also provide the insight. You're talking about, the content insight, right? Who updated it? When was it updated? How many times a piece of content is being used? How many times that has been ended up being in a winning RFP versus losing RFP? All those metrics, meta information is readily available for the sales reps before they use that piece of content, even for an email reply. And that's where we see that helps them to, we talk about the sales training and readiness, you're talking about the sales content system, and that becomes customer intelligence. It connects the dots. When you send, you can track how much is the opening rate, where are they spending the time on. If I'm sending them a proposal, where are they spending the time on, how much minutes they are spending. All those intelligence becomes really handy for our users to make an informed decision.
Well, we could go on, but I really appreciate it. And I want to reiterate some profound points you've made. 1, salespeople are the most expensive asset in the company. 2, content is one of the biggest growth assets in the company that's severely underutilized. And I think a point I want to emphasize is the product managers and the product sales engineers and specialists are the scarcest resource in the selling organization. You're hitting a trifecta of impacting all 3 of those with your solution. You can learn more about our research on our site, the Revenue Enablement Institute, and I appreciate your time. And thank you so much for sharing your insights with me, Ganesh.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate you having me on this interview.